Do you see this book right here? Yeah, it's fat. About 700 pages. And this is the fastest that I've finished any non-fiction book ever. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about Tools of Titans by Tim Ferris and why you have to read this book to get all the tools and recipes for success as laid out by the experts and greats in every field. I first tested out this book on Audible and the narration was really gripping, but I kind of felt like there was something missing and I had to have the hard copy, and I'm so glad I was correct. Because this book is full of so many amazing quotes and graphs and just sayings and references and links of such amazing resources that I would really miss out if this was just sitting on in my Audible library. As you can see that I have annotated and marked so many pages because I found all of these things super useful, and I'm going to share a bit of it with you today. And I really want all of you to go ahead and buy this book. You're going to be a little intimidated at first, but once I tell you how this book is exactly laid out and how you can extract the most value from it, you're going to be super excited, and I hope you actually go out and buy this book. So let's get started. There are a few rules to reading this book. Tim Ferris says that treat this book like a buffet and not an a la carte. You have to pick and choose parts of the book which are relevant to you. Not everything will apply to you. He says that readers mostly like 50%, love 25%, and never forget 10%. And almost always the ratio of that 50, 25, 10 is very different from person to person. So my favorite parts will probably not even come in your top 50. So that's why you have to read this book for yourself. So Tim Ferris declares himself as an avid note taker in the first page of this book, and that makes me really happy because I'm an avid note taker myself. And here he has penned down over 160 profiles of people very well renowned in their fields and who are also guests on the Tim Ferris show, which is his podcast. So basically these are all the recipes or tools of each of these guests and how they created this life where they are wildly successful. And there's a quote in the book that says, "Success, however you define it, is only achievable if you collect the right field-tested beliefs and habits." So in essence, you can follow the blueprint of a very successful person and become just like them. Because this is another idea in the book, that the superhero that you have in your mind, this perfect person, that who might be your goal, whether it's Elon Musk or maybe Indra Nooyi or whoever you're thinking of right now, that person is basically walking with a bunch of flaws, but they have maximized one or two strengths to such an extent that you can only see their strengths, and that's why they appear perfect to you. So in this book, tools basically refer to any kinds of habits, routines, tactics, their personal self-talk, supplements they use, fitness routines, regimes, all the help that they got, everything. Everything that anybody out of these 160 plus people who have become famous and successful in their own lines have used, that is referred to as tools. And you can use these tools as a blueprint and kind of adapt whatever applies to your own life and create your own map for success. Before I delve deeper into some of the profiles that I found the most interesting, like my probably 10% of the book, I want to highlight a few things that were common observations across the board. First is, more than 80% of the interviews have some sort of a mindfulness or meditation practice involved in their day. So it's no surprise that whatever billionaire morning routines, etc. videos that you can find on YouTube, everybody talks about meditating. And I haven't gotten around to it, but I know a lot of people who have, and they swear by it. So this might be the push that we need to move in that direction. Second, a lot of males over 45 never eat breakfast, which is so surprising. Like, I cannot imagine not having breakfast. But then it depends. Like, a lot of people are also late risers and they're like night owls, so they don't feel hungry earlier in the day. But I'm pretty sure most morning people feel very hungry early in the day. So yeah, that was interesting. Some of the most recommended books were Sapiens, Poor Charlie's Almanac, Influence, and Man's Search for Meaning. So if you've read any of these books, comment down below and let me know how you liked it. a lot of people have used a single song on repeat for increased focus. And most of them say that this is a song without lyrics and it's just an instrumental on loop that actually helps them increase focus. Most of these successful people complete projects in their own time and then take it to buyers and sell it, instead of actually first, securing the contract to do the project, because they want to show people that they can do the work first before asking money for it. So that was a really interesting takeaway, and I think this has come up a lot also in recent times, where a lot of even college kids or school going kids do a lot of projects on their own time and then they show it to prospective employers or different graduation schools that they want to go to, and that acts as a proof of their work and that they know this particular concept or thing that they claim to be proficient in. Most of them believe failure is not durable, so they don't think that failure is going to last. Even if they do fail, they figure it out and they believe that they will succeed. They don't believe that the state of failure is like their permanent state. And finally, they turn their weakness into a competitive advantage. Now let's get into the different parts of the book. This book is divided into 3 parts: healthy, wealthy, and wise. Healthy is dedicated to mostly athletes and performers who have a very extensive fitness regime, do a lot of training, and are always trying out very different and unique things in terms of diet and exercise. I did not find a lot of relatable profiles within the healthy part because it was very hardcore and it deals with a lot of supplements and things which a normal person with a full-time job who just wants to stay fit, I don't think there's a lot in there for us. Obviously, people who are professional athletes and need to maintain a certain degree of fitness because of their profession, this will be really useful and there's some key insights that you can take from it. But this part was not for me. The wealthy part is obviously about people who've managed to acquire a lot of wealth, and it's not in absolute terms, it's also to do with their mindset. They had a very abundant mindset that they were sure that they are going to attract this wealth. And then the wise part is obviously about people who are continuously improving themselves, who are already geniuses and well known in their field for having great strategic thinking. So that's how this was divided, and I will just talk about a few profiles from the wealthy and the wise parts of this book. And in addition to the profiles of these people, there are a lot of articles in this book, some things which Tim Ferris really believes in, like 5 habits which he includes in his morning ritual, then what his morning journaling looks like, then the concept of 1,000 true fans and how 1,000 true fans are all that you need to establish a successful business. And there are a lot of interesting ideas in here, and I don't really want to spoil all of that for you, and I'm going to leave the rest of this book for you to figure out and explore, because I really think everyone should go through this book. This one and Atomic Habits, the review I've done a little while ago, are 2 books which I think are the best non-fiction books that you are going to ever read. It allows you to actually implement things into your life and not just give you empty advice. So yeah, let's get into the profiles now. The first profile we have is of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has been in a lot of professions in his life: actor, producer, former bodybuilder, politician, a bunch of things, right? But there are a few key principles that he's led his life by, and his profile comes in the wealthy section. He had come from Austria. He did not look like the other actors around that time. He was a bodybuilder. He was very, very well built, and everybody around him told him that nobody would cast you as a lead in any movie because you look very different from everyone else. From that point in time, he had that mindset that he would never adjust himself to fit into some other category. He would create a niche for himself, and he had that idea so very clearly established in his head that he did not ever try to look like any of the other men who were cast as lead in movies during that time. He maintained his physique, he maintained his personality, and then he did eventually get cast in movies which were perfect and truly unique for him. He has never auditioned. He knew he was different and he never tried to fit in. And that is a mindset that I truly admire, to be so confident in yourself and your abilities that you are not even bothered about what anybody else is doing. He also had a very winning mindset. He always got into things to win them and not to compete. Like, there is this very nice paragraph in this book about how he plays psychological tricks on his opponents and just makes them a little bit insecure, and he knows that that is their weak point. I don't think it's very right to do that, but also it shows how confident a person can be in their abilities and in their not just like physical abilities for that particular task, but ability to unnerve someone. Like, he was so confident that if he says this, that person will get unnerved and that will help him win. And he had no apologies about it. He said it's their fault. And it's also mentioned in the documentary about him called Pumping Iron, and this part of his personality I just found very fascinating. Like many of the profiles in this book, he also used meditation as a form of daily like mindfulness practice, and that really helped him in his work. Next we have Scott Adams. Scott Adams is the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, and if you haven't seen it, I'm going to put a picture right here. All of you must have heard the quote where James Clear talks about systems being better than goals, right? And in the same vein, Scott Adams also says that winners have systems and losers have goals. He believed in this thing called morning flooding, which basically means that as soon as your mind is empty, you have to flood it with new thoughts. And he did this every morning. He would wake up, have coffee, have the same breakfast every day, and then he would flood his mind with thoughts, like by reading different kinds of things and just exposing himself to new things. He's also one of the only people that I found in this book who believed in affirmations. He would write down affirmations to himself 15 times a day, and he eventually achieved all of the things that he wrote. But he had a specific way in which he wrote them. I'm not going to disclose it. It's better if you read it from the book. And there's one principle that he followed where he said they have to become the best at one thing or the top 25% in 2 or 3 things, and that's the only way to become successful. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you are the best, obviously you are the only person who can do that job to that level of perfection. And if you're about the top 25% in 2 or 3 things, then this mix of skill sets at that proficiency is also very rare to have in any one person. I really appreciated this idea, and it makes sense when you think about the fact that most of the people that you admire have maximized 1 or 2 strengths. So in that way, if you can identify 1 or 2 of your own strengths and maximize those, that definitely falls within the blueprint of success for me. Moving on to the whys part. Now here there were a few interesting profiles, but I'm going to just talk about my top 2. First is Whitney Cummings. Whitney Cummings is a stand-up comedian, and she is an actor, writer, producer. She also had this show on Comedy Central called Whitney, which I used to love, and she's very funny. And she says that in order for art to imitate life, you need to have a life. So a lot of very creative people who really want to focus on their art just do that all day. Like if you're painting, you paint all day. If you're like a performer, you're just rehearsing lines all day. Like in her case, when she was a stand-up comedian, she was just writing jokes all day. But art always imitates life, right? And if you're not experiencing anything other than your work only, then you don't really have a life, and you can't draw experiences and inspiration from that. So that lowers the quality of your art, and that's kind of counterproductive. And I thought that was a very interesting outlook. And some of the things that she said actually spoke to me so much because I found it very relatable. She said that 10% of being on stage is about the content that you're saying, and 90% is just being comfortable with it, which kind of translates to any kind of speaking if you think about it. Like right now that I'm talking to you, obviously it's a lot to do with what I'm saying, but if I was saying the exact same thing and I was not comfortable saying it, then that would reflect, right? Then you wouldn't want to watch this video anymore. So I thought that was also a very interesting outlook, in how you are actually being comfortable with what you're doing has a lot more weightage than you normally think. And the final thing she says is that people pleasing is not a good thing. Obviously we knew that, but we always thought about it from the perspective of the person who is the people pleaser, right? But if you think about it a little more, you would realize that when we are trying to please somebody, and when we are trying to say something just so that it makes the other person happy when we don't mean it, it is actually doing a disrespect to them, and we think that they are unable to handle our genuine feelings towards a certain thing, and then we are not giving them the dignity of their own experience. So that was like a very insightful thing to say. If you are trying to please somebody, you are not giving them the dignity of their own experience, and that blew my mind. And the next profile, which I found among the most interesting in the why section, is of Sam Kass, who's an American chef, but he also served as Barack Obama's policy advisor for nutrition. So I thought that was very interesting. I did not even know such a position existed. He has 3 very simple yet very meaningful things to say. First is 75% of success is staying calm. If you are calm, you can handle any situation, and then you are going to get the best possible outcome. The second thing he says is you need to have a high standard on everything. If you yourself are lowering your standards, if you are accepting a subpar performance from yourself, then how are you going to improve? In order to improve, you always have to have a high standard for yourself, and that's the only way you're going to get ahead in life. Like, he was a chef, so he related it with examples from the kitchen, but in general in life, if you think about it, you need to keep a high standard for yourself, and only then you're going to be continuously improving. And the final thing he says is you have to step back and come up with a plan. As a planner, of course, this was my favorite thing. He was obviously again talking about in terms of if something goes wrong in the kitchen, you have to, like, instead of frantically, you know, moving your hands and feet everywhere, you have to just calm yourself, collect yourself, and figure out a plan. And that's the key for any kind of adversity in life. You have to figure out a plan to get out of it. You have to figure out a plan to get ahead. You have to come back and look at the bigger picture and see what can you do to make it better going forward. You obviously can't fix going back, and you can keep thinking about, I could have done X, I could have done Y, would have, should have, could have. Would not help you, right? So that's why he says just step back, look at the bigger picture, and then come up with a plan. I have only talked about 4 people out of the 160 plus people that are listed in this book, and I did that on purpose because there were a lot of great insights and I did not want to spoil this book for anybody. You will find so many different kinds of profiles that you will relate to, and you will relate to some parts of one and some parts of the other, and I'm sure you will not regret reading this book at all. So that was a video. Read this book and let me know which was your favorite profile, which is the 10% that you are taking away from this book, and let me know if it matches with my 10%. I'll see you in the next week. Bye.